The holidays are upon us, and as we gather with friends and family, a lot of us will be making plans for traveling in the next year. So I thought I'd take this opportunity to talk through my thought process as we plan trips in our EV. Now, we have a Tesla Model Y that we'll be planning for, but toward the end of this, I'm going to also look at traveling with a Mach-E and an ID4. Same path with all three vehicles to show that it's doable in many of these mid-size crossover SUV vehicles. The beauty of owning an EV for over 3 years now is that the novelty's kind of worn off. We still love it, but it's just become our car, kind of like our Camry and Sonata was before this. It's just the thing in the garage. We don't stress about charging or planning trips around town, and really that comfort level is where we'd like to see everyone get as they transition to electric vehicles. Obviously, I'm a little more enthusiastic than I was about those cars, but day to day it's just a way to move my family around. If I need to go somewhere, I just plug it into the nav and I don't worry about it. But in 2018, I would consult maps, apps, and websites just to do small trips out of town to make sure I could do it. In 2022, there are still times when it's good to dust off those planning tools and test the variables for a big trip. And we've got a case like that coming up. In the dead of winter, my daughter's got some time off school, so we're going to escape the frozen tundra of Minnesota and head down to the sunny beaches of Florida. Due to some work conflicts, my wife's going to be flying down, but Joan and I are going to hit the road in our 2021 Tesla Model Y and do a road trip similar to what we did in the Frunkful of Diapers series. Now, we could easily just plug the trip into the nav day by day in the Tesla and roll with it, but we've got some variables, and I want to make sure we're making the best use of our time. So that's where these planning tools can really come in handy. We're booked at a hotel from Tuesday afternoon to Sunday morning. That part's set in stone. Now let's look at the variables. Variable 1, a single driver. Although in my 20s I could drive 24 hours plus in a stretch, it was never smart, and with my daughter in tow, powering through monster days of driving is out of the question. I'll add a day on each end for sanity's sake. Variable 2, traveling with a child. At 8 years old, Joan's got more road miles than most kids, and she's already an old road dog who enjoys being in the car. However, consecutive long days are tough. The charging stops help, but I want to build in shorter days and side quest adventures to break up her seat time. So if we need to leave on Sunday already, we may as well back that up to Saturday since she won't miss any more school, and it will give us more flexibility. Variable 3, destination charging. On day 1, we can leave home with a full battery, but the other days will depend on whether we can find hotel charging. If I can locate hotels with reliable charging, we can start those days full too and maximize miles. If not, we'll need at least one extra charging stop, and this will determine when our heavy charging days are and when we'll have more time for sightseeing and meetups. Variable 4, cost. Sure, YouTube seems glamorous, but I don't get paid or sponsored for this, so there's a limit to how much I can or am willing to spend on hotels and stops. You'll remember in the Frunkful of Diapers series, we slept in the car 3 nights at least. I don't plan on doing that in this trip, but it's not off the table, especially since we're now paying for charging as well. So first let's take a look at Google Maps and just kind of look at the trip as a whole. Going from Burnsville to Cocoa Beach in a straight shot is 23 hours and 39 minutes, and almost 1,600 miles. Like I said, we're not going to straight shot that, and we're even going to go a little bit different route because I want to do some meetups along the way. This will add miles, but with those extra days we should be okay. The way home will be a more straight shot. So here we are in a better route planner, and this is one of my favorite planning tools, and I'm just going to plug in the trip as if we were going straight shot with a couple stops. I'm going to take out Cincinnati. We were going to go see Fiona the Hippo in the Cincinnati Zoo, but because it's February, it's going to be pretty cold and probably unlikely that she'll be in the viewing area. So that takes one stop off the table and should maximize the speed of our route. In a better route planner, you can set up your car and your details. With advanced settings, you can select quite a few other things. And so that's definitely worth setting up how you like to travel when you do it. I've already done that, so I'm going to go back here. And I'll just plan the overall trip here. It takes a couple seconds. And here we see the grid showing how much we need to charge and where, and it's got our waypoints in there. Here you can see in black. So I'm going to just close that up and zoom into the map here. And so this is a pretty good route, about what I was thinking. And you can see up here, a less efficient route and charging stops means that our 24-hour trip from Google Maps is now 32 hours, 40 minutes. Let's call it 33 hours. So considerably more time, but we're going in an arc and we're going to see more sites. And because we've got those extra days, it should be overall easier. But now I need to figure out where I want to break these days up. Like I said, I don't want to wear myself out or my daughter out on day one by doing, 20 hours and then be exhausted and need days to recover. So we're going to take it a little slower than I normally would and try to find something around that Illinois-Indiana border for a hotel. So in a Better Route Planner, you can add some lodging stops. So let's go back here and we can add an amenity. And when we switch over to hotel, you see you have a few different options. You can stop after a certain length of time, stay for a certain number of hours, and how far away you're willing to stay from a charger. So this doesn't specifically have destination charging labeled, but if there's a hotel near a supercharger, for instance, it will try to put you in something like that. I did try a plan this way, saying after 9.5 hours, find me a hotel. It found one near St. Louis. That was pretty decent and where we kind of end up here later, but it only allowed me to add the one and then gave me 3 options, and it just kind of made the trip planning clumsy. So I kept that out. So I'm going to switch over here to PlugShare and find the hotels in that interface, and then come back and plug them into a Better Route Planner. And PlugShare has this hotel charging custom view. I know I want to drive, roughly a quarter of the way on day one. So I'm going to zoom in here and say, let's find something on the border of Illinois and Indiana. And to speed things up, I've already done this and found a spot here in Effingham, which looks like it'll work pretty well. Although Mount Vernon might be a little closer, might be more of a straight shot. It'll be more travel on day one, but it might be more of a straight shot. So let's take a look at this. And here we've got a Comfort Inn and Suites that's got a Tesla destination charger and a J1772 with 2 plugs. And we can see Tesla was occupied. No red flags there on the check-ins. And we can look at photos to see how people were using them. And it doesn't seem like they were too iced, and they go back a ways. So that might be a good stop. Let's take this location and plug it back into a Better Route Planner and see what our day would be like if we went to this hotel. And so we'll come back and we'll plan that new trip for just day one. Burnsville, Minnesota. We're going to say the end of our trip is Mount Vernon, Illinois. So after a few seconds, we can see that's 11 hours and 8 minutes on the road between that and charging. Not awful, but it's a long day. And I do want to stop and see Jim, the Iowa Tesla guy, as we go through Iowa. We could do that maybe at the Waterloo Supercharger. None of the charging stops are that long. It looks like we've got 16 minutes, 11 minutes, 13, and 10. That's about perfect for restroom breaks, especially with my daughter. So no problems there. It's a pretty efficient trip. It's just a long way to go in one day. Okay, off camera, I've just spent about 5 minutes just thinking about this. My original thought was that we would go to Effingham, which is right up here, and there's a Tesla supercharger nearby and another hotel that's got destination charging. But you can see a lot of the roads to get there. You come south and then go back north. And this is a nice arc coming south. It's further than I want to go in the day, but maybe the thing to do is pick somewhere like a Hannibal or somewhere along this route. So I'm staying on this arc but not going north or cutting across in a weird backtracking angle. So let's take a look back at PlugShare and see if there's anything. No, it looks like Hannibal, a Chevrolet Buick dealership. That's not going to be a comfortable place to stay. Now there is one other solution, which is actually very handy for Tesla drivers, and that is Tesla's own Find Us page on their website. So here you can see there is the Hannibal Supercharger, which is a version 3, which is great. It does not look like there's lodging nearby. So I'm going to turn off superchargers and just look at their destination charging and zoom in on that. There is this place in Chesterfield, Carcraft. I'm guessing that's not a hotel as well. Holiday Inn Express is good, but it's a little far south if we want to stay on 64. La Quinta, St. Louis Westport, Brewery, Ritz-Carlton, probably more than I want to spend. Hampton Inn and Suites. So there are a couple options. Either we just stay somewhere near Hannibal and there is the supercharger, or we come down all the way to St. Louis. Let's hop over to Better Route Planner, and we're going to go to Hannibal, Missouri. So let's just go right to the supercharger, and let's navigate that. So that's saying 7 hours, 35 minutes, which is a long time in the car, but if we have all day, and we're going to break it up a couple times, we could probably go further. Just for kicks, let's try St. Louis and see how far that is. So that's a long day, but not a brutal day, and it gets us further south, which is nice. And if we stay on the western side of St. Louis, that might be a good place to go. On Tesla's site, here is that La Quinta. So it'll be pretty close to right on the way. There's a couple other superchargers. So if we can charge at the La Quinta, that would be great. And then if we need to charge in the morning on our way through, we could hit this Brentwood, Missouri supercharger. So I'm going to pencil that in for day 1. And we can see our charging stops here. 6 minutes, 17 minutes, 11 minutes, 12 minutes. That's going to be perfect for bathroom breaks and maybe even be too fast for us. So definitely the charging is not going to slow us down when traveling with a child. That's for sure. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. Now let's see kind of where we want to go for day 2. If we restart this, we can reorder here. And we'll be starting from that La Quinta, let's say. And obviously it goes without saying that you should probably check the hotel's websites and make sure they're not overly sketchy. It's good to go on a budget, but it's also good to be safe and smart. So plan accordingly to what you're comfortable with. So let's just zoom out here a little bit. St. Louis is here, kind of on the little nook of Missouri here. And I'd like to get either to Northern Virginia or into North Carolina on day 2. So let's zoom in here. So I was thinking Roanoke or Asheville. So let's see which way is the best way to go here. I'd kind of like to cut through the mountains sideways so we can get a lot of good mountain and hill time, lots to see, and hopefully some fun pull-off stops. And that's 12 hours, 38 minutes to get to Roanoke. That's another long day. Let's see what it is to Asheville. So that does cut through the mountains pretty well. It gives us good short charging stops. Hopefully there's going to be a lot to see. And it cuts an hour of travel time out. It's still a long day, but it sets us up for a couple shorter days as we just need to make it down to Cocoa Beach. And looking a little closer, with that long day, it might be better to make another stop. I was looking at, this is Asheville. This is Pigeon Forge, but it looks a little more resorty. And I'm guessing with that will come higher prices. So let's take a look at Knoxville, Tennessee. So here we're only looking at a 9-hour day, which seems considerably easier. And it will give us some good time to hopefully get out and see some of the mountains toward the end of our day. Charging times should be relatively easy. 7 minutes, 17, 16, 7. So really easy supercharging. Then we've got supercharging along the way afterwards. So let's say Knoxville is night 2, and let's take a look for hotels around there. It looks like there are a couple options. Hilton Garden Inn, 2 J1772 plugs, Comfort Inn and Suites, 1 Tesla plug, 14 kilowatts. Looks like people have had to share, but it doesn't look like it's, at least on PlugShare, used terribly often. So let's call that night 2. We'll just grab this address here and throw that into a better route planner. Well, that address isn't wanting to go in, so I'm just going to leave it at Knoxville. So it's 8 hours, 47 minutes on day 2. Seems pretty manageable, and we'll get 500 miles in, and hopefully some sightseeing. In day 3, I want to get down somewhere around the Savannah area. Savannah might be a fairly expensive area to stay, but if we can get in that general vicinity, then it's a pretty easy trip to get down to Cocoa Beach on day 4. So let's just try that. We'll go Knoxville, Tennessee. We'll move that to the top. Let's just plan for the supercharger. And I want to add a waypoint because we want to stop in Charlotte, North Carolina. And here's another 9-hour day, but we should get lots of good sightseeing through the mountains. And we'll pass somewhere near Charlotte, North Carolina to stop and see Brandon and Kaylee, the EV Nomads. Just meet up with them somewhere in that area, probably not through downtown. So our estimated time might come down, even though we will stop to see them. We probably won't be driving through downtown Charlotte. So again, the day from a charging perspective is really pretty easy. 6 minutes, 22 minutes, 16 minutes, and then we're down to Savannah. And finally near the coast, which Joan will love. And just before I start looking in Savannah, I want to double check that Savannah to Cocoa Beach, just want to make sure that that's a pretty easy day. About 5 hours of travel right along the coast, shouldn't be a problem at all. And will get us there plenty of time to check in for the hotel. So that day can be a relatively easy day, really just one charging stop of 17 minutes in St. Augustine, which is also a cool city to go check out. So I'm pretty happy with that. So let's take a look around Savannah for hotel options, ideally with charging. So here we're down by Savannah on PlugShare, and we can see we've got some options. Holiday Inn and Suites. Here we've got 1 J1772 and 2 Tesla plugs. Looks like it might be an ICE situation, but judging by Tesla's site, there are a few superchargers around. We don't want to charge at that airport, but we have other options if we need a charge and the hotel isn't working. So we can call that night 3. And obviously I will check pricing and everything before I actually book these, but this is just a window into my thought process. So now we know our destination for the final night. Still pretty easy, plenty of superchargers along the way. One just needs to be this 17-minute supercharge, but we will get there with 10%, so we'll probably stop at, let's add in the Titusville supercharger and add that as a waypoint. That should be a pretty great way to travel. Okay, so here is our complete trip with the stops included that we found earlier. If we bring up the grid here, we can see our estimated time for stopping and cost, what our battery levels will be, and all that stuff through here. Cost, stop duration. Looks like our longest stops are 21 minutes, so that is very doable. And we have night 1 in St. Louis, night 2 in Knoxville, night 3 in Port Wentworth, which is near Savannah, and then we'll arrive in Cocoa Beach. So all of that looks pretty good. At this point, I was going to show you my plan for driving back. It's going to be more of a straight shot, only 2 overnights, and I did plan all that out, and if you'd like to see it, I can show you in another video. But I thought it might be more helpful to see how a better route planner can plan for other vehicles as well. So we're going to plan that exact same trip, but use 2 different vehicles, both crossover SUVs in the electric world. The Mustang Mach-E and the Volkswagen ID.4. Both of these vehicles should easily be able to do this trip, so let's take a look at what those routes would be and see if we see any major differences. We'll go up to settings and change the car model. So let's go with the Ford Mustang Mach-E, extended range. We'll go all-wheel drive. And we'll leave our departure state of charge the same. I'm not sure what the reference consumption is, so I will assume it's taking that into account with the change of vehicle. So we'll keep all that the same, and all the rest of it will be the same. So now that we've changed that to the Mach-E all-wheel drive extended range, let's replan this, and I'm sure it'll take us off superchargers. So planning the same route with the stops in St. Louis, Knoxville, and Savannah. Let's take a look at our grid. We'll go to a Hy-Vee, a green lot stop in Waterloo, Iowa, charge point. Then it looks like we're on Electrify America. This supercharger was a waypoint I added in, so that's not a charging stop. So because the Electrify America network is not built out quite as well up in the northern part of the Midwest, we are going to green lots and charge point on our way south on these stops. And then around St. Louis, we pick up the Electrify America network where it's a little heavier. So if we zoom in here, we can see it's a fairly similar path, slightly different charging areas, and our overall trip time has moved up to 37 hours and 15 minutes. So it added roughly 3.5 hours to the trip, but still not bad. In both cases, we might have hotel charging that would affect both routes equally. So let's change it again and try the ID4. Scroll down to Volkswagen, ID4. And I'm going to try this a couple different ways because technically the all-wheel drive isn't out yet, but it will be soon. And I want to compare all-wheel drive vehicles first, but then I will come back and show the path for the Pro 77 kilowatt hour because that is what is out and about right now. You can see with the Mach-E and with Volkswagen ID4, they had the Alpha here. That means a better route planner doesn't have quite as much data as it does on the Teslas, so it's using its best judgment now, but that judgment will improve over time as more and more of these vehicles get on the road and more trips are planned with these cars. So like I said, let's start with the all-wheel drive, and we will say the one with the heat bump. So we'll replan that route. I'm guessing the charge stops are going to be fairly similar. So we can see here now the all-wheel drive ID4 would shave 1 minute off the time for the Mach-E. So pretty similar there. Also going to the green lots here and then charge point before getting on Electrify America the rest of the way down. And another interesting thing as I bring up the grid here, the time at chargers is significantly longer. They're more spread out, so there aren't quite as many stops, but the stops are 52 minutes there, 50 minutes, 56, 44 hour and 8 minutes at the green lots. And I'm sure an experienced EV driver who's done this route before, I'm thinking of Brandon and Kaylee, the EV nomads who have an ID4 rear-wheel drive, would probably be able to maximize a quicker route than this. But this is what a better route planner is seeing for now. So let's go back and change again to the rear-wheel drive. And we'll choose the version with the heat pump again. Well, that's interesting. So the rear-wheel drive is a little more efficient. It can do the same trip in 36 hours, 46 minutes, which means a savings of about a half an hour overall on the trip from the other non-Tesla vehicles. So a little bit faster, still some long charges, but fewer of them. So that's a matter of taste on how you like to travel. Obviously, the Tesla overall is still about 3 hours faster than this, just because that network is so robust and the vehicle is slightly more efficient. But any one of these vehicles could do the trip and do it pretty easily. So that's the exciting part of so many good, solid EV options out. There's the right one for everyone's taste and whatever fits their family's needs. So I hope this gives you some confidence in planning a trip in your EV, or if you're considering an EV, feeling comfortable that in most places in the country you can travel fairly easily and fairly inexpensively. In fact, just for kicks, I took those 1,840 miles and calculated what it would be in a gas car that got 30 miles to the gallon at around the $3 gas mark where we are right now. And that would be $184. And so even more expensive than the Mach-E, which came out the high on this plan, and far more than the Tesla, and definitely far more than the ID4 would have with the free Electrify America charging for a couple of years. So you're saving some money even on traveling where charging an electric vehicle is more expensive. But the experience is great. Most of the charge times weren't terribly long. I'll put links to a better route planner and PlugShare in the description below. But I hope this gave you a little confidence. Start playing around with some of these planning tools, some of these routing tools, and make your first or maybe your next trip in an EV. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Happy holidays if you're still watching this when it's fresh. And have a great 2022. Thanks a lot.